Are you going to top that?
That was awesome, Sarah. Thanks. All right. Next up, we have John Biscello. A novelist, poet, playwright, and arts educator, John Biscello is the author of 3 novels, a short story collection, and a volume of poetry. A new poetry book, Houses of Crystal Muses, a collaboration with Antoinette Nora Claypool, will be published in December by Wild Embers Press. At present, he's working on his 5th novel, All the Last Furies, and will be directing a short film he wrote, Ballad of the Cuckoos. So somehow John does it all. And he's got books here tonight to buy, and he'll sign them for you, I'm sure, after the reading. Give him a hand.
I'm the guy that rearranges the furniture when I come here. So I'm going to try and go without the mic, and if people can't hear me, I'll use it, but everything needs to be a certain way. You're watching OCD in action. Let's see, put this aside for now. It could be a bar stool. Joey, did you drink out of one of these? I skeeve you. No, I'm kidding. Backwash. Back in Brooklyn, that's what he used to say. He goes, well, you go backwash, backwash. I'm not drinking from you. When I was a kid, the most disgusting thing was thinking about drinking from my parents. Like friends, it didn't matter. These were like nasty guys who did nasty things. And I didn't mind drinking from the bottle with them. And but if it was my mother or my father, it made me sick. I felt like revolt. So, which leads into this, kind of. So just quickly, before I read this piece, let me just give you this blurb here that will give you some context from the book. So it's titled No Man's Brooklyn. This is my 4th novel. It's not published yet. And I change the furniture, you get hurt.
I know, it's like green.
Oh, shit. Wow. For an OCD guy, I'm not very... Okay, so the synopsis for the book, again, just for context. From the valentine boneyards of working-class Brooklyn comes a tale of first love, lost innocence, tragedy, and forgiveness. Daniel Trovato, having left his native Bensonhurst, you may see some resemblances tonight between Daniel Trovato and John Biscello. Don't read into it too much. But, what did you say? This is autoerotic fiction?
No, not
It's autoerotic fiction. I'm glad you're there. I'll be looking for you. Left Bensonhurst, started a new life in LA, is recently sober and enjoying cult success through his Sworn Witness series of graphic novels. When he receives word that his childhood love, Anya, the girl to whose absence he has remained faithful, has died from an overdose, he is compelled to return home. It is there that he will walk through the ghostly twilight of an unfinished past and revisit both the romantic lore and shadow life of his childhood. The enduring torch he's carried for Anya, the girl from nowhere who was found in a trash can and adopted by a Russian family, the hazy circumstances of his mother's suicide when he was 14, glacial estrangement from his father, the street and concrete joys, follies, and rawness of an urban boyhood. Ultimately, No Man's Brooklyn is about the mythic journey we take to meet our core self, and a lyrical testament to the words of Dylan Thomas. The memories of childhood have no order and no end. And so, in the photo, my father is maybe 8 or 9. He is squinting in a yard, shovel in hand, poised to start digging in the dirt. His gaze is rueful, wounded, as he stares directly at the camera. The hurt brimming in his eyes is animal-like, feral. The skin above his eyes is slightly bunched up, as if that's where he's holding tears in, barely. The last time I visited with my father, I came across this photo in a scrapbook and felt immediate affection for it. I asked him if I could keep the photo. He said, sure, but why did I want it? I told him it might be useful one day, not explaining how or why, and he didn't ask. I think of that little boy with storied hurt charging his eyes when I see the man who has grown up around him, enveloping him in flesh and flab and muscle. My father's uncombed hair is now flecked with gray. His midsection is a pronounced rump. His face is pocked with creases and bears a lightning storm of ruptured blood vessels. Swells like pinkish batter puff above and below his eyes. I can't tell if his strong, slightly crooked nose, broken in a boxing match, which has always reigned as the emperor over the whole of his face, has gained or lost in stature. So now they're going to Atlantic City. This is a reconciliation between father and son. The drive to Atlantic City went smoothly enough, save for my father's incessant horn blaring and the barrage of insults he howled at other drivers. I'm pretty sure my father invented road rage, but if he didn't, he was definitely one of its most prolific practitioners. The heat didn't help any. It was in the mid-90s and my father's AC was out. We rode with the windows down with furnace blasts of air gusting into the car. My father chain-smoked the entire time. We talked some, listened to classic rock some. At one point he handed me the Daily News and said that my friend Fat had made the papers, page 10. In the article, John Calenzia, a.k.a. the barber of Bensonhurst, dubbed that because he owned 2 barber shops in the neighborhood, along with 2 other men, was arrested for an attempted hit on the life of Frank Bruneski, a whistleblower who had testified against several notable gangsters. I saw John's mugshot, the same plump face and sad eyes, except the face looked doughier and the eyes angrier. As a kid, he took a lot of abuse for his weight. I remembered how he would go into weeping rages where he'd sob and convulse and kick fences. I also remembered how he used to promise that one day he'd be a gangster and he'd drive a white Cadillac and the license plate would read, Fat. We checked into the trop where my grandfather and his wife were also staying. My father calls my grandfather and we make plans to meet for dinner at 5. When he gets off the phone, my father cracks, "Your grandfather's 85 and he's got a cell phone before you do. When are you going to get one?" I'm not, I say, and decide not to remind him of my disdain of phones. "One bed," I point out to my father. "Yeah, but it's king size, plenty of room." I can't remember the last time I shared a bed with my father, or if I ever have. "How you like my new sunglasses?" He models what looks like Terminator sunglasses with a silver tint. "You look menacing," I say, "futuristic." "They're cool, huh?" He removes the sunglasses and places them in the front pocket of his shirt. I open the sliding glass door and step out onto the terrace. The heat comes over me like a woolen blanket. There is a view of the pool, which is crowded. A colored beach bowl is being batted around. Music blares from speakers. The blue of the pool shimmers like a digitally enhanced postcard. Beyond the pool lies the beach, which is also crowded. My father joins me on the terrace wearing his sunglasses. He lights up a cigarette. "Beautiful, huh?" I almost tell him that this sort of generic beauty, which reminded me of a fake blonde with silicone tits, did nothing for me. That standing on a terrace overlooking a sun-bleached pool was far less interesting or moving to me than sitting on a cafe on a rainy day and immersing myself in gentle melancholy, but instead say, "It's nice." My father turns to me, "You need sunglasses. I have an extra pair." "Nah, I have a pair. Do you remember I was wearing them in the car?" Yeah, well, if you want to borrow mine, you can. They're almost like these." My father indicates his sunglasses with a cocked thumb. "We can be like twins, have our own gang. You want to borrow them?" "Nah, I'm happy with my sunglasses." "All right, but if you want to borrow mine, let me know." My father flicks his cigarette over the railing. "I'm going to go down and do some gambling. You want to come?" "Yeah, I'll meet you down there in a little while. There's some stuff I need to write." "Oh, yeah? Why, you going to write about me?" My father smiles. "Partially, yeah." "When I'm dead and gone, they're going to remember me through your stories. Except I'm always made out to be the bad guy, right?" My father smiles again. It is the smile of an innocent pretending to be a bad guy, or vice versa. "You're not the bad guy," I say. "There are no bad guys. It's not like that." "Oh, no? I read some of those stories from that book you wrote years ago. What was it called?" "Rabbit Transit." "Yeah, Rabbit Transit. You threw me under the bus plenty. But that's okay. I probably deserve some of it. And you should write what you want to write." "I forgive you." My father pats me on my cheek and grins. "Okay, wish me luck. I'm going to hit the roulette tables. Good luck. But first," my father goes into his duffel bag and produces a bottle of cologne. He dabs generous amounts onto both sides of his neck. Then he slaps his cologne-saturated folds of neck, further activating the pungent scent. Polo, he says. Christmas gift from Gina. I have to admit, Gina, she always gave the best gifts. If you want to use some of my cologne, go ahead. I'll leave it out. Sets the bottle on the nightstand next to the bed, then he leaves. I take my notebook out of my backpack and draw the curtains in front of the glass door, eliminating the daytime glare. I click on a lamp and sit down at a table. I think about the drive to Atlantic City, what my father and I had talked about, what traffic had been like, the music that played on the radio, the weather. Then I write, the drive to AC went smoothly enough, save for my father's incessant horn blaring, the barrage of insults he had howled at other drivers. I'm pretty sure my father invented road rage, but if he didn't, he was definitely one of its most prolific practitioners. When I join my father in the casino about 45 minutes later, he is slightly drunk and informs me that he's lost all his money. I am not surprised that he's lost all his money. That was par for the course with his gambling, but I am surprised that he's lost it in under an hour. He tells me not to worry, though. The room was comped, and the drinks and food would also be comped at the restaurant where we were meeting my grandfather and Marie. I tell him that I'm not worried and that I have some money. This was a new phenomenon for me, one that I was still getting used to. I had almost always been broke. Beg, borrow, steal, and hustle had been my creed. That I was actually making a living as a writer continued to boggle and amaze me. It was like I had slipped into a magnificent dream, which I feared would be destroyed by a harsh awakening at some point. Let's go to the restaurant now, my father says. We can hang out at the bar until your grandfather and Marie get there. You okay with sitting at the bar? Sure. We go to the restaurant and sit at the bar. The Yankee game is playing on the TV. My father drinks doubles of Johnny Walker Black. I wonder how long before he goes off the rails. I drink mineral water and munch on the peanuts and pretzels that the bartender puts out. She's a 20-something with frizzy blonde hair. I notice that her nails are painted black and are overlaid with white stars. My father, who knows the bartender, says, "Gretchen, this is my son Daniel. He's visiting from L.A." "Hello, Daniel," Gretchen says and shakes my hand softly. "Gretchen's the best," my father goes on. "She knows how to handle me. Right, Gretchen?" "Yeah, Louie, I know how to handle you." "She knows when I'm going over to the dark side." "That's your evil twin, Louie." "Yeah, that's my evil twin. When he comes out, forget about it." My father knocks back his Johnny Walker and orders another. "That's the stuff that brings him out," Gretchen reminds my father. My father laughs again. "Yeah, I know. We should call my evil twin Louis Black, huh?" But I'm all right today. Today I'm all right. I'm with my son, and we're going to be meeting my father and his wife for dinner. You know, it's going to be the first time in ages the generations are together. 3 generations. It's kind of historic. "Well, here's the history," Gretchen says, and sets my father's drink in front of him. "What about you, hon? You want something to drink?" "I'm good with mineral water, thanks." "He doesn't drink anymore," my father says to Gretchen. "He's a good kid. He's a smart kid. I did all the bad and he learned to do good. Right, Danny?" And he affectionately cups the back of my neck. "What's your last name, Louie?" Gretchen asks. "Trovato." She raises a glass in toast. "To the Trovatos, to the 3 generations." My grandfather is wearing a blue cap with a yellow Navy logo splashed across the front. He has grown thinner in the face and body as if parts of him have melted away. Beneath the pale, cloudy blueness of his eyes, there is an almost cutting vividness. His wife, Marie, is a large, round woman with boxy shoulders. She has kind eyes. The difference in builds between Marie and my grandfather physically qualifies them as an ideal slapstick team. After we get our food from the buffet, I notice that my grandfather still follows what has always been his hard and fast rule. You don't drink anything until after you've finished eating, not a sip. When I would go to his house, I would stare at my glass of Coke or iced tea as if it were the forbidden oasis to a dehydrated man. The one time I did try and take a sip, my grandfather, without saying a word, glared at me with ice daggers, and I never tried again. I also noticed that my father, in the presence of his father, respects the rule and doesn't take a sip, either of his Johnny Walker or his water, when eating. I drink my drink to see if my grandfather will indict me with a glare, but he doesn't. My grandfather tells a story about how he and Marie met at the bowling alley and were married 2 weeks later. During the conversations, he ribs Marie about her weight, which she takes in stride. She tells me that she's read The Sworn Witness, which surprises me. I can't imagine an 80-year-old woman indulging in a comic strip psychodrama. When I ask her what she thought of it, she says she thought it was interesting and well written. She continues, Your grandfather has copies of all your books, you know. My grandfather cuts in. I always knew you'd make it as a writer. You were always the best in your class, the best student. I want to disillusion my grandfather and tell him I wasn't the best in my class, the best student. I was a pretty good student who from grade school on pretty much hated school. Instead, my father does the talking. You had to hear him as a kid, Marie. This kid always in his room doing all different voices and making noises. I thought he was crazy, his mother too, but I guess you got to be a little crazy to do what he does. My father laughs and everyone joins in, even me. My grandfather gets to talking about himself and goes on in this way for a while, a long while. Later, my father will complain to me that all the old man ever talks about is himself. You can't get a word in edgewise. I'm tempted to tell my father that he's exactly the same. That he is the subject he most loves or rather needs to talk about. To a certain extent, I am the same, except I might change it to I am the fictional subject that I most love and need to write about. When my grandfather delves into the past, his past, involving earlier generations of Trovatos, about which I know very little, I follow him there with great curiosity. He talks about his 8 siblings, 3 brothers and 5 sisters. Says that Anna May was the oldest and the toughest, that she was their second mother. He doesn't say anything about his first mother. About his father Auguste, who came over from Alife, a town in southern Italy, he says, My father was a Romeo. He loved the ladies. Loved them. And he was a big drinker. Big drinker. He died of cirrhosis of the liver. That's why I stopped drinking. I didn't want to end up like him. When I was drinking, they'd say, What are you drinking? Bring me 6 beers, I tell them. And I drink those. They'd come back. What are you drinking? 6 more, I'd say. Before you know it, I drink 24 beers. And I felt fine. Fine. But I couldn't keep going like that. I saw what happened to my father, so I quit. Just like that. Cold turkey. Never had another drink after I was 42. You always were disciplined like that, Dad, my father says to his father while taking a sip of his Johnny Walker. I don't know if the sip is meant to ironically underscore my father's lauding of his father's discipline, or if my perception is psychologically framing it as such. I understand that I am not only with my father and grandfather as family, but also as a writer. I am sketching them. The mechanical hand in my mind that never stops is charting and sketching and composing them. I feel that I am with them, but also at a great distance from them. I fictionalize my father as he speaks, as he gestures, what he says and does, what he doesn't say and do. I am creating from him on the fly a sort of metaphysical free sketch, drawing from his reality and unreality. And in that sense, I am also creating myself. It is a relationship based on invention and rooted in artistic license. A part of me hates that I am doing this. Maybe not hates, but feels somewhat cunning and diabolical. And yet I can't not do this. It happens naturally. I participate almost by default. It is an action that breeds a degenerate form of intimacy, which I crave. I see and hear throughout dinner how my father so desperately wants to impress my grandfather, wants to be applauded by him, recognized, seen. My father bulldozes in with his own stories, his own flourishes of pride. He vacillates between recent past, distant past, and present, in crafting a small legacy to which my grandfather can respond with praise or compliments. This doesn't happen. My grandfather either says nothing or somehow maneuvers the topic back to himself. In some ways, it is painful to listen to these exchanges. Not painful exactly, squeamish, sad. And I knew the same was true for my father and me. A sad chain of fathers and sons not hearing each other, not seeing each other, relations bereft of anything even remotely resembling intimacy. I was my father's father as much as I was my father's son, all of it relative in a broad orchestral sense. After dinner, my grandfather and Marie go back to their room, plans to rejoin us later. Before they go, my father pulls my grandfather off to the side. 2 minutes later, he returns smiling. I'm back in business, Danny boy. The old man loaned me $1,000. Come on, let's go somewhere else. We head to a different bar with an island theme. A bartender with a yellow lei collaring his neck says aloha and asks us what we're drinking. My father says Johnny Walker Black, double. When my father asks me what I want to drink, I hear myself say Stoli and soda. My father doesn't seem surprised or fazed by my order, nor am I. It almost feels normal. like it's something I've been ordering all night or would inevitably order at some point. And just like that, after almost 3 years sober, I'm drinking again. By the way, I, in real life, have maintained sobriety, but this guy didn't. So. I had forgotten the false yet exquisite sense of ease produced by alcohol. All the noise in my head began to fade into a dim background. I was no longer walled in with the rabble. I was now on the fringes. There came a leveling that was akin to peace, even if it was peace fretted with worry about losing that peace. It was a peace whose thorny bedfellow was anxiety. People have called it the glow, the click, the hum, and for every abnormal drinker, and there might be a few in here today, I'm guessing, for every addict, you are willing to trade in everything for what amounts to a rigged facsimile of eternity. It is the sort of false eternity that swindles and seduces, and you are happy to be swindled and seduced, to yield to the siren call and the Salome of promises, to indulge the fatal basking. And so, yes, Jung was right when he stated, addicts are frustrated mystics. Because the innate desire, the heart cave hunger, is to commune with God, to connect with something bigger and purer and truer and deeper than what you know or what you have experienced, to connect with other and live deeply warm and worry-free inside a dream, to cover impossible distances in the shortest, quickest, easiest manner possible. Addicts have a hard time taking the slow road to heaven. And busying oneself with the impossible is one way of protesting reality. These were not the things I was thinking, or at least they weren't yet formulated thoughts when I started drinking. They were the first few sips, which were marred by hesitation and guilt, by disappointment in myself. Then those feelings were burned away or drowned as my brain switched gears. It was like giving demons the keys to the kingdom and hoping they didn't wreck the joint too much. After the first bar, my father and I slid over to another one, a non-island themed one where a DJ was spinning party pop music. At this point, my father was slumped over in his bar stool. When the bartender asked him if he's all right, he says, yeah, I'm fine. They know me here. Don't worry, they know me. They take care of me. The bartender smiles and leaves us be. You're wrecked, Louie, I say, and I try to help him sit up straight. He takes my statement as an insinuation, an affront to his pride. Yeah, but that's because I've been drinking straight Johnny Walker Black Doubles all night. You've been drinking what? Your mixed drinks. What do you expect? It's not a competition, I say. Though a part of me is really happy that he's the one slumped over on the bar stool, not me. Anyway, I'm fine. I just need a second wind. Asserting his will, my father brusquely rises up from his bar stool and nearly topples forward before steadying himself. See? I'm ready for another round. You? Sure, I say. Let me order. I got it, he insists. My father shouts to the bartender who takes his time coming over. Yes? What can I do for you? Johnny Walker Black Double, and, well, you still drinking Stoli and soda? Yeah, Stoli and soda. On the rocks, right? Rocks? Yeah, rocks. I can't serve you, sir, the bartender says. Can't serve me? You kidding me? I'm sorry, let me get you a glass of water. Water? You know what fish do in that stuff? My father parrots W.C. Fields. The remark, hey, you talked about W.C. Fields earlier. Wow. Joe noticed that we're all connected, us three. We're the Trinity tonight. The bartender remains baffled and repeats that he is sorry but can't serve my father. This is bullshit, my father barks. They know me here. They know me. Is Mikey working tonight? I want to see Mikey. Mikey's off tonight. Mikey's off tonight. My father repeats with disdain. Just give me the drinks I ordered. I'm sorry, the bartender clips and walks away. I'm going to punch that bartender in his stupid fucking face. My father growls as his face reddens. Relax, Louie, relax. Remember your evil twin? I'm relaxed. If Mikey was here, there'd be no problem. Mikey knows me. They take care of me. When my evil twin comes out, they cut me off and somebody escorts me back to my room. They know how to handle my evil twin, but I'm still me right now. I'm still me. This fucking bald-headed faggot bartender, just be quiet. I'll get our drinks. I go to the other side of the bar and order 2 drinks from a different bartender. My father and me went to sit at a table in the far corner, out of view from the bar. See? Problem solved. Like a grateful child, my father eases into his drink, but he continues to seethe about the bold bartender. You know what I can't stand about that bartender? He's insincere. What do you mean he's insincere? I mean he's insincere, he's not sincere. I can see it in his eyes. I look at the people's eyes, and I can see that. A lot of people in this bar, very fucking insincere. If there's one thing I can't stand, that's one thing I can't stand. Phonies. All of a sudden, I feel as if I'm getting drunk with the Brooklyn version of a middle-aged Holden Caulfield. Am I sincere, I ask? You? Yeah, you're sincere. You're fucking crazy, so you can't not be sincere. My father's reasoning, his morality guidelines fascinate me, and I want to hear more. What about your brothers, Freddie and Carmine? Freddie, yeah. Freddie's a stand-up guy, always has been. He's the best of us. Carmine, I couldn't stand him growing up, and I still can't stand him. He's a fucking retard. When Carmine came along, my mother had to take care of him because he was like a moron. I don't even talk to him anymore. It's like talking to a moron. And his wife, Dottie, the thief, don't even get me started on her. I switched tracks and asked him about his father, how it felt to see him again. How does it feel? It feels like nothing. I mean, it's good to see him. I'm happy to see him. But me and the old man, it's never been... You know, Danny, let me tell you something. When I was a kid, there was this one time we were driving somewhere, the whole family, and the car door opened. And I'm falling out of the fucking car. I'm halfway out. I'm almost on the fucking road. And he knew about it, but he didn't stop. He didn't even slow down. He wanted me to fall out of the car. One less kid to deal with. He never wanted me. I was the bad kid, the troublemaker. Freddie was always his favorite, and Carmine's a fucking retard. And Julia, that's different, because she's a girl. She got treated different from us. But me, never wanted me. It's too much of a pain in the ass. My father pauses, nuzzles the rim of his glass, continues. But you know what? I love the old man. I respect him. He always made money, that guy. He always took care of his family. He was always the best at everything. We couldn't live up to that. Not me, not my brothers. He was the best at everything. He was the best dancer, the best drinker. He was a ladies' man. How do you live up to that? You don't, I say. That's right, you don't, my father brusquely agrees. The only time I'd ever seen my grandfather cry was also the first time I'd ever seen an adult blatantly lose touch with reality. His first wife, my grandmother Angelina, had died when I was 5. She had been dead for maybe a week, and my grandfather came to our house and told my mother that he had come home from work and Angelina wasn't there. Did she know where Angelina was? I remember feeling so confused. It seemed like my grandfather was pretending or playing a game, except my stomach told me that something else was going on. My mother told my grandfather to sit down, and then she gently explained to him that Angelina had died. There had been a funeral. Did he remember the funeral? A look came over my grandfather's face, one that I'll never forget. He looked stricken. His face trembled, and he began sobbing uncontrollably. He became a small child in my mother's arms, and that terrified me. How could this old man, my grandfather, turn into a small child? How could he forget that his wife had died when he had been at the funeral? I didn't understand. My father was there too, but he had no idea what to say or do. He stood nearby and didn't say a word. My mother held my grandfather and talked to him in a soft, soft voice. My mother had the situation under control. She knew exactly what to do, or at least gave that impression, which I suppose amounted to the same thing. I tell my father about the memory. He doesn't remember it. You sure I was there? Yeah, I'm sure. My father repeats that he doesn't remember it, then pauses. I expect him to continue along the lines of this memory, or lack thereof, but I am taken by surprise when he says, I know that after your mother died, you weren't the same. I wasn't the same before she died, I crack. No, listen, I'm being serious. When I lost my mother, and I was a lot older than you, when you lost yours, I was never the same after that. Boys need their mothers, that's a thing. It's a fact of nature, you know? Your mother, I don't know what happened to her. She went downhill so fast. She had been going downhill for years, I say. I anticipate a harsh response, but instead receive a soft, maybe, yeah. I moved to bring up something that I have never discussed with my father. Did you know that her father molested her? What are you talking about? I'm talking about 2 weeks before she died. She told me that her father used to molest her. She had blocked it out her whole life, and then she remembered it. I can see that my father has no idea what to do with this revelation. His contorted expression reads overload. Tomas molested her? Yeah. My father goes quiet, stays quiet. The confusion on his face sharpens and clarifies into anger, then more confusion. I don't understand why she told you. I guess she needed to tell someone, and I was there. My father nods his head as if agreeing, then he stops nodding and his forehead creases. And I wasn't there? Yes and no. Yes and no. Yes and no. Always talking out of the side of your mouth, Danny. Can't you ever give a straight, simple answer? And let me tell you, I admit I wasn't the best father. I did plenty of fucked up things. But you always had somewhere to live. You always had food on the table. I know you don't like to remember those things, but they happened too, Danny. It wasn't all bad. No, it wasn't all bad. I blandly agree. My father shakes his head. I can't believe Tomas did that to your mother. If I would have known, my father stops there. What more could he say? If he would have known, he would have what? Shadowboxed with a ghost? With a series of ghosts? There are fights that can't be won. You been to your mother's grave yet? No. You gonna go? Just thinking about it. Let me know if you go. I'll go with you. Okay. When I was younger, I never considered my father's inner landscape, or that he might even have one. He was simply my father, my hero, my monster, my god, my tormentor, my boogeyman. He was the man I sometimes wanted to murder and sometimes expected to be murdered by. His inner life was none of my concern. I was way too busy retreating into my own. It is the photo of the 3-year-old cowboy grinning ear to ear, overjoyed to have his pony and his mother. That's the photo I need to remember. He, like the rueful little boy digging in the dirt, and all the other little boys I never saw that are time-locked inside my father, might widen my perspective, if not deepen it.
Thanks, everybody.
It's my job.